Hi, I'm Sydney Teague, and I will be talking to y'all about my research over Generation Y and the perceptions between store brands and national brands. Um, First off, store brands are becoming more prevalent, and they're super popular with saving money, and pretty much a lot of good group of people believe that store brands are pretty much the same quality as any other brand out there. I wanted to know, since store brands are becoming more prevalent and they're becoming more popular and more competitive, if Generation Y would rather buy store brands or national brands. Just because national brands are seeing a little competition from store brands, and what better way of finding out which is a major competitor by analyzing Generation Y's perceptions of these intentions of perceptions of these brands, just because Generation Y is the largest um, buying consumers in the United States and worldwide. So, in the hypothesis, I thought that Generation Y would probably buy more of the brands that were more familiar to them and that they had positive perceptions of. So obviously they would have positive perceptions of brands that they have always been associated with throughout their lifetime and haven't had a bad experience with. Also, I thought that this would result in them with Generation Y providing that Generation Y would buy more familiar brands and their perception of those brands would be positive. The method and the sample I gathered was Generation Y, which is 18 years of age through 29 years of age. I asked college students to answer these questions, and how I asked these questions, I sent out a survey, which I made on Qualtrics, and I made it about 20 questions long. Some were multiple choice, some were fill in the blank, and some were a Likert scale. The Likert scales, they had 10 questions each about store brands and national brands. I sent these surveys through email, social media, and then I printed out some of them and handed them around campus to different people. Also, um, there wasn't really that many people who, there wasn't a wide range of different demographic, so I feel like that could have been a problem in the results. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. For the data analysis, for Generation Y consumers, they ended up buying products that they found more appealing. They tend to buy products that were more familiar to them, and 63% of respondents would rather buy store brands to save money, and then 20% would spend the extra dollar, and 17 didn't have a preference on either choice. So obviously money had a huge impact on whether or not the consumer would buy store brands or national brands. Also, most respondents showed that they are usually purchasing brands that are cheaper than other brands, unless the brand is a brand that they are associated with and have had um, many times of developing a relationship with, then they are more likely to buy that specific brand. So other than that, respondents showed that they would rather save money or buy non-perishable items like as for store brands. Many people didn't really have a preference. It just depended on what they were buying and how much money they had. So that was a huge impact, and it was kind of weird to me that a lot of people would rather buy Walmart store brands than Target or United. That's what I got from my results. Um, In conclusion, store brands are becoming more popular and have better chance at survival during economic downtimes, like what I found in my survey. People are more likely to buy store brands when they don't have enough money. So people aren't gonna, not a lot of people are gonna spend the extra dollar trying to just have the same brand that they have over cheaper, like $2 cheaper, and it's the same product and just the same amount of quality. Um, the hypothesis that I stated, did it come out to be true? People were more likely to buy what their parents bought when they were growing up or what they have bought like repeatedly. Money did have a huge part in this, but that doesn't mean they preferred store brands. It's just they would rather save money than spend all their money on national brands. Usually parents purchase both national and store brands, which indicated that Generation Y is familiar with store and national brands. So, of course, they didn't really have a preference, just depended on what product they were buying. Most people were going to buy non-perishable items um, like paper towels or plastic plates, forks, spoons, knives, like plastic forks and spoons, just snacking items as store brands. Other things that they would buy as national brands were like milk and orange juice and yogurt and things that were easily perishable. Um, Also, store brands are just usually the choice of them buying store brands is just because of the pricing difference. Um, the implication of recommendations for this study, I would recommend people, anybody doing this research and further study, they would get more research on many different demographics instead of having just college students, so they can compare different people and different demographics instead of just having straight college students. Or they would, and they would get other generations' perceptions on store brands and national brands and see where that leads them and the difference between those, just in case of Generation Y isn't really that different from Generation X or baby boomers or any of that. Also, there wasn't many literatures that did research over Generation Y and their perceptions over store brands and national brands. There was a bunch of literature between store brands coming up and becoming a bigger competitor with national brands, but not so much Generation Y's impact on all of this. Also, Generation Y would help determine the difference in their perceptions between store brands and national brands. So altogether, just probably more diversity, a bigger sample, of course. 30 people really is not a lot of people, respondents, to get a whole wide range of people to do research on. So therefore, just overall, I would get diversity and a bigger sample for the study and possibly more other generations to study in their whether or not they like store brands or national brands. Alrighty, thank you very much.